Hi, and welcome to Face to Face. It's great to have you with us on the. But first, we're going to talk to Lyn and Ken Overton. We got your name wrong then. It's great to meet you both. Ken, you're from Devonport, Tasmania. Give us your family situation. You've got how many kids?
I've got 3 sons and a daughter.
Yes. And
we've had 5, or my children have had 5 granddaughters. And just a week ago, one of them produced a grandson.
Fantastic, isn't that wonderful? Now, we're here to talk to both of you as a wonderful story of survival for you, Lyn, in a terrible situation from a few years ago. And it's a story of where God's really worked in your life through a pretty awful situation. Lyn, you were very fit, went to the gym a couple of times a week. That was life for you as a mum. You enjoyed exercising and looking after yourself.
I still do.
Yeah, good on you, Lyn. Ken, tell us about that Sunday morning a few years ago. You're in church. What happens?
Well, Lyn had a broken leg, and she had 1 week to go to get the cast off.
Yep.
And we're walking in the church door, and she looked at me and said, "I feel faint." And with that, she went blue and just looked straight through me and collapsed into my arms. And I guess I recognised the fact that it was a serious moment because I had a flashback at that moment of a guy dying in front of me at Ayers Rock with my children as we were walking up there. And I felt I was reliving that experience when that chap had died. And I'm glad that I perhaps had that flashback because it made me realise that this could be serious with Lyn.
Yes.
And so I put her on the floor basically, I thought, at that moment for her last breaths.
Yeah. Lyn, you don't remember any of this, do you? You have no memory of these?
No memory whatsoever. I just remember telling Ken that I felt faint.
You do remember that?
But nothing after that.
And how many weeks before you remembered something?
Well, it was close to 2 weeks, although while I was down in Hobart, I do remember a gospel singer coming and singing to me and praying for me.
And we're going to see that story unfold because it's quite a remarkable story. Ken, you obviously call the ambulance and you know that's a serious situation. And almost one of the first things that happened was kind of the hand of God in Lyn's situation. How did that occur with the ambulance driver?
Well, there was a chain of events that really took place. That morning, there was a lady there that had said, she tells the story, she hadn't actually been to church for a while, but she thought she would come to church. And that lady, the medical people say that by her doing CPR on Lyn, certainly saved her from immediately being brain dead. And then also a doctor who'd actually been coming to the church for only 2 weeks, he turned up at that moment as well and was able to assist the paramedics.
Right, right.
The paramedics were working on Lyn for 20 to 30 minutes and there was very little response. In fact, they have said that she was clinically medically dead, but they still kept working on her, aware of the fact that she looked young, she was fit, and they wanted to give her every opportunity. And then she did make a slight groan, a movement, and of which they then took her quickly in the ambulance to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, she had 2 cardiac arrests again, and at the hospital again. And it was just amazing that they kept working on her, but they did. She had the paddles, the shock treatment, and then she was given a drug to break up the clot quickly as a last resort to save her life, but that did then cause a bleed into her brain.
Let's go back just before we get to that. Going backwards, what was the condition that she'd gone down from?
What had actually happened?
Yeah, sorry.
She'd the clot had activated from her leg. Apparently, they say it was about 9 inches, gone through her heart into her lung, obstructing her breathing, of course, and causing cardiac arrest.
Okay, so here's this massive clot blocking her, basically her heart and her lungs.
Yes.
And so now there was a tough question there, wasn't there? Because do they give her what will break up the clot, and what effect might that have? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't have to make that decision. Thankfully, at that point, certainly had another one to make, which we'll get to. The medical people just did what they thought was necessary. The paramedics say that when they put her in the hospital, they thought that it would only be a 99.9%, that's his words, chance that she would have come out of there.
Wow.
But they gave her every chance of survival at that point.
So, and as you said, they give her the agent to thin down the clots, which would save her lungs and heart, and therefore her life. But then the other impact is a stroke. Yeah,
well, she was bleeding then in her brain because her blood went from being thin.
Yes.
And that caused the stroke and paralysed her completely down the right-hand side.
So she's in hospital just near Devonport.
Yes.
This happens. Yeah. What are the choices, Ken?
Well, they explained to me that if they did nothing, that she won't live because of the bleeding in her brain, but they could actually ring Hobart, which is a 3-hour drive by car, and see if a neurosurgeon was on hand to actually assess Lyn. And but the other thing was, how are we going to get her there in time? And he explained to us that they wouldn't take her by vehicle because she wouldn't make it. They said that it'd only be a small chance that she would survive in an air ambulance, but they would, you know, if we're prepared to allow that to happen, that would be the next step. But of course he said, I don't know where the air ambulance is.
Let's just hold that and come back after a minute, because I know you're going to stay with us because you want to hear what happens in this wonderful story. We'll be back with more of Face to Face in a moment.